My name is Sarah Evans, and I am 30 years old. For most of my life, I've occupied that uncomfortable space in the family portrait where no one really looks the other child, the one defined by what she isn't. My older brother, Mark, 40, is the finance whiz, a VP at some soul-crushing investment bank, complete with a corner office and a perpetually condescending smirk. My younger sister, Emily, 27, is the creative one, a social media manager for a trendy fashion label, whose life is a curated feed of brunches and borrowed designer clothes. And me? I manage a small community bookstore in a quiet neighborhood. Noble work, my mother calls it, which is code for doesn't make enough money to impress our friends. Our family dynamic was cemented early on. Mark got the praise for his ambition, Emily for her charm, and I got polite indifference. They never understood why I chose books over bonuses, why I preferred quiet impact over loud success. My parents, Richard and Eleanor Evans, weren't cruel, just blind. Blind to anything that didn't fit their narrow definition of achievement. The only person who ever truly saw me was my grandmother, Eleanor Sr., a formidable woman who built a small real estate empire from nothing and possessed a quiet wisdom that cut through my parents' superficiality. Don't let them define your worth, Sarah, she told me countless times. Substance lasts longer than shine. Grandma Eleanor passed away 6 months ago. Her funeral was exactly what you'd expect. Elegant, expensive, and filled with people more interested in networking than grieving. Mark gave a stilted eulogy about her business acumen. Emily posted a teary-eyed selfie captioned #RIP Grandma #Family Legacy. I just stood silently, missing the woman who smelled like old books and quiet strength. 2 weeks after the funeral, I received a call from Mr. Abernathy, Grandma's longtime attorney. He asked me to come to his office alone. I assumed it was about some sentimental keepsake she might have left me. When I sat down in his imposing office, he slid a thick document across the polished desk. Your grandmother updated her will 3 months before her passing, Sarah, he said, his gaze steady. She has left the entirety of her estate, including the controlling interest in the Eleanor Vance Foundation, to you. The room spun. What? That can't be right. What about Mark? Emily? My parents. They each receive a modest, fixed sum, Mr. Abernathy explained. But the bulk of the assets, the properties, the investments, the foundation chairmanship, it's all yours. Her instructions were explicit. She also requested that the full details of the will remain confidential until the annual foundation dinner in December. He handed me a handwritten letter from my grandmother. Sarah, my dear, it read, I've watched you choose kindness when others chose ambition. I've seen you build a life of quiet service while others chased applause. They measure worth in dollars. I measure it in impact. This foundation needs a heart, not just a balance sheet. You are its heart now. Use this wisely, use it kindly, but don't let them diminish you ever again. Show them what real value looks like. I walked out of that office in a daze, clutching the documents. I was now, inexplicably, incredibly wealthy. But more than that, I felt seen, validated. Grandma had understood. But her request for secrecy until the foundation dinner, that sparked an idea. A risky, perhaps petty, but deeply satisfying idea. For years, my family had treated me like a charity case, a lovable loser. What if just for a little while I leaned into their perception? What if I gave them one last chance to show their true colors before the truth came out? My plan began subtly. I needed a believable crisis. A month later, citing unexpected plumbing issues in my building, entirely fabricated, I told my parents my apartment was uninhabitable for a few weeks while repairs were done. Oh, Sarah, that's terrible, my mother said, her voice laced with that familiar pity. Where will you go? I was hoping maybe I could stay in the guest room for a bit, I asked, injecting the right amount of hesitant vulnerability into my voice. There was a pause. Well, darling, she said slowly, it's just, Mark is having his office remodeled, and he's using the guest room as a temporary workspace. And Emily has guests coming from out of town next week. It's just terrible timing. No offer, just excuses. But I'm sure you'll figure something out, she added brightly. You're so resourceful. Resourceful. Right. Next, I called Mark. Mark, I'm in a real bind. I began, launching into my rehearsed story. My apartment's flooded. I need a place to crash for maybe 2 weeks. Any chance I could use your spare room? He sighed, the sound conveying maximum inconvenience. Sarah, that's rough. But honestly, my place is a mess with this remodel. Boxes everywhere. You'd hate it. Plus, Karen, his wife, is super stressed. Why don't you try Emily? She's got that big 2-bedroom. He ended the call quickly, mumbling something about a conference call. Emily was my last hope, though I knew what was coming. And you won't believe what happened, I said, putting extra desperation in my voice. Flooded out of my apartment. Can I possibly sleep on your couch for a little while? Oh my God, Sarah, that's awful, she gushed. But my couch? It's vintage velvet, darling. And I have a brand photo shoot here next week. The whole place needs to look perfect. Maybe try an Airbnb? Or mom and dad? She sounded genuinely apologetic, but the underlying message was clear. My crisis was an aesthetic inconvenience. So there it was. Not one offer of a couch, a spare room, not even a suggestion of practical help. Just deflections and pity. It hurt, but it also solidified my resolve. The next phase involved a job loss. I told them the bookstore was downsizing and I'd been laid off. This they could easily believe. Oh, Sarah, my mother said sadly over the phone. Maybe now you'll consider getting a real job. Mark could probably find you something entry-level at his bank. Entry-level. I managed to keep my voice even. Mom, I managed that bookstore for 5 years. Yes, dear, but managing books isn't quite the same as managing finances, is it? Mark's reaction was even better. Laid off.
Ouch.
Told you that bookstore gig was a dead end. He texted back. Look, I know things are tight for you. How about this? I need someone to pick up my dry cleaning and walk the dog. $100 a week? Help you keep your head above water. $100 a week. To walk his pampered French bulldog. The condescension was breathtaking. Emily offered advice via Instagram DM. Maybe start an Etsy shop? Selling like handmade bookmarks? Small, manageable. She even sent me a link to a side hustle seminar. The final test was asking for money. I waited another week, letting my fabricated desperation build. I called each of them, explaining that without a job, I couldn't make rent. I hated the words even as I said them. Could you possibly lend me a little bit? Just until I find something new? I'll pay it back, I swear. My mother sighed heavily. Sarah, we're already stretched so thin helping Emily with her car payments and Mark with his country club dues. We just don't have extra right now. But we'll pray for you. Mark was blunt. Look, Sarah, I can't be bailing you out. You need to learn to stand on your own 2 feet. Maybe sell some of your stuff? That old car you drive. Emily was the most creative. Ugh, money is so stressful. I totally get it. Why don't you start a GoFundMe? I'll share it on my stories. Great exposure. Not a single dollar offered. Not even a token amount. Just lectures, prayers, and suggestions that I monetize my poverty for social media. The contrast between their reactions and my grandmother's letter, her faith in my character, her belief in my substance, was stark. They saw a failure, a burden. She saw a successor. The Eleanor Vance Foundation annual dinner was the highlight of my parents' social calendar. Held in the grand ballroom of the city's most historic hotel, it was an evening of performative philanthropy, where my father would give a speech about community, my mother would glide among the guests in a new gown, and Mark and Emily would network shamelessly. The foundation, funded entirely by my grandmother's fortune, supported local arts and education initiatives, causes my parents paid lip service to but had little genuine interest in, unlike Grandma, who had poured her heart into it. And this year, according to the will Mr. Abernathy was holding, I was the new chairwoman. I arrived deliberately late, slipping into the glittering ballroom just as my father took the stage. I wore a simple, elegant black dress, understated, professional. I saw my mother scan the room, her eyes briefly passing over me before dismissing me, likely assuming I was waitstaff. Mark and Emily were holding court near the bar, laughing loudly. None of them had spoken to me since my requests for help, aside from the occasional pitying text asking if I'd found a job yet. My father launched into a speech, full of platitudes about legacy and giving back. My mother, Eleanor Vance, he said, his voice resonating with false emotion, believed deeply in supporting this community. And we, her family, are committed to carrying on her vision. He gestured vaguely toward my mother, Mark, and Emily, seated at the head table. Though we face uncertain times, the foundation remains strong, thanks to prudent management. Prudent management? Mr. Abernathy had discreetly informed me that under my father's brief stewardship, the foundation's operating costs had mysteriously ballooned, while actual charitable distributions had shrunk. As he spoke, Mr. Abernathy caught my eye from a side table and gave me a subtle nod. It was time. When my father finished to polite applause, I made my way toward the stage. My mother saw me approaching, her eyes widening in alarm, then narrowing with annoyance. "Sarah? What are you doing?" she hissed as I passed their table. I didn't answer. I walked calmly up the steps and stood beside my bewildered father at the podium. "Thank you, Dad," I said, my voice clear and steady, amplified by the microphone. That was a lovely sentiment. The room quieted, confused murmurs rippling through the crowd. However, I continued, turning to face the guests, there seems to be some confusion about the future leadership of the Eleanor Vance Foundation. My father tried to interject, but I held up a hand. As some of you know, my grandmother passed away 6 months ago. What you may not know is that she updated her will shortly before her death. I looked directly at my parents, at Mark, at Emily. Their faces were masks of shock and dawning horror. "Mr. Abernathy," I called out, "would you be so kind?" The elderly lawyer stood and walked to the stage, carrying the official will. According to Article 4 of the last will and testament of Eleanor Vance, he read, his voice clear and authoritative, the entirety of her estate, including the controlling interest and chairmanship of the Eleanor Vance Foundation, passes solely and exclusively to her granddaughter, Sarah Evans. Gasps echoed through the ballroom. My father staggered back as if struck. My mother clutched the tablecloth, her knuckles white. Mark's jaw dropped. Emily spilled her champagne. Furthermore, Mr. Abernathy continued, the will stipulates that this transfer of leadership takes effect immediately upon the public reading of this clause at the next official foundation event. He looked around the room, which is right now. He turned to me and bowed slightly. "Madam Chairwoman." I took the microphone back, my hand steady. "Thank you, Mr. Abernathy. And thank you all for being here tonight to witness this transition." I looked at my family, who were frozen in disbelief. I understand this comes as a surprise to some. My grandmother believed in discretion. She also believed in testing character. I addressed the guests again. Over the past few months, facing what my family believed were significant personal and financial hardships, a fabricated eviction and job loss, I sought assistance from my immediate family members. I paused, letting the words sink in. My parents offered prayers, but no practical help. My brother Mark offered me a $9 an hour janitorial job and lectures on success. My sister Emily suggested I start a GoFundMe. The murmurs in the room grew louder, shifting from confusion to outrage. People were looking at my family with open disapproval. They demonstrated, I said, my voice ringing with quiet power, that their definition of family support did not extend to the daughter they perceived as unsuccessful. Grandma Eleanor, however, had a different definition of success. I held up her letter. She wrote to me, "They measure worth in dollars. I measure it in impact. This foundation needs a heart, not just a balance sheet. You are its heart now." I looked out at the sea of faces. And I intend to honor her vision. The Eleanor Vance Foundation will be refocusing its efforts. Effective immediately, we will be significantly increasing grants to community literacy programs, arts education in underserved schools, and initiatives supporting vulnerable families, the causes my grandmother truly championed, the kind of quiet impact she valued. My father finally found his voice. This is illegal. She manipulated my mother." "Actually," Mr. Abernathy interjected smoothly, "we have video testimony from Mrs. Vance, recorded the day she signed the will, explicitly stating her reasoning and confirming her mental competency. She anticipated you might contest it." My mother started sobbing, not quiet tears, but loud, theatrical wails. "How could you do this to us, Sarah? We're your family. You define the terms of our relationship, Mother." I replied, my voice devoid of anger, only a profound sadness. "When I needed you, you offered platitudes. When you thought I had nothing, you confirmed I meant nothing. My grandmother, however, saw something more. I turned back to the guests. The foundation will undergo a full financial audit. We will ensure every dollar serves its intended purpose. And under my leadership, transparency and genuine community impact will be our guiding principles. The applause started slowly, then grew, filling the ballroom. It wasn't just polite clapping. It was a genuine affirmation. People came up to the stage, shaking my hand, congratulating me, expressing excitement about the foundation's new direction. My family remained at their table, isolated in a circle of their own making, their faces a mixture of fury, shame, and disbelief. Mark avoided my eye. Emily stared at her phone, frantically typing. My father looked utterly broken. My mother just wept. Later that evening, as the event wound down, Mr. Abernathy handed me a final document from Grandma. It was a simple list of instructions regarding the personal sums left to my parents and siblings. Give it to them, she had written, but only after they have truly understood the value of what cannot be bought. I walked over to their table. The remnants of their perfect evening lay scattered around them, half-empty champagne glasses, discarded canapes. The fixed sums allocated to you in the will, I said quietly, placing the checks prepared by Mr. Abernathy on the table, will be distributed as instructed. My father looked at the check, a significant amount, but a pittance compared to the fortune he thought was his. He didn't reach for it. Mark snatched his immediately, his eyes gleaming with resentment. Emily took hers with trembling hands, avoiding my gaze. My mother just stared blankly ahead. Grandma left one final note, I added, my voice soft but firm. She said she hoped this experience would teach you the value of what cannot be bought. I paused, then delivered the final blow, quoting her directly. Perhaps now, she wrote, they will understand that a loving heart is worth more than a filled wallet. I turned and walked away, leaving them with their checks and their choices. I didn't look back. The power dynamic hadn't just shifted, it had been completely redrawn. I was no longer the invisible daughter, the family failure. I was the keeper of my grandmother's legacy, armed with her wisdom, her fortune, and the quiet strength she had seen in me all along. The foundation dinner was just the beginning.